Hey everybody, welcome back. Mike from Spectre Comics here. Today we are working on issue 6, page 27 of Spectre Comics. It's the last week of January. I wanted to give a little update on my progress on the comic. Now, my last video of 2020, I talked about the goal of 2020 was to finish issue 6 by the end of the year. I didn't hit that goal. I still had a couple pages left. After we didn't hit that milestone I mentioned, the goal was to get it done by the end of January. I'm not done yet, but we are very close. I only have 2 pages left after this one. Again, as I said, this is page 27 we're working on behind me in the background, and we're going to talk through the page and some of the progress we're making and getting towards the end of the comic. I did complete this page, so this page is currently done as of the shooting of this video. I've already started working on page 28, which is the second to last page before the end. So this page I had expected to go a little faster than it did. I got a bunch of stuff done over the holiday break that I had before starting back at work. January's been crazy with work. I've been working a lot of long hours. I've mentioned that in my last video. So it's been hard for me to even make a video. But the goal is to get this done as soon as possible. I'm really excited to finish issue 6. It has been a long run. For some reason, this issue has taken me longer than any other issue that I've worked on. In addition to the art being a little more complex than some earlier issues, just the time-consuming nature of my job has prevented me from being able to sit every night and work on the comic. So excuses aside, this page I expected to go a little quicker because there wasn't a lot of background to draw. This page before that, this page, had a nice establishing shot where the robots re-entered the maintenance bay where they're repairing 2 robots. The maintenance bots are repairing 2 robots that we found on Idessa way back in issue 3 of Spectre Comics. That being said, this page is focused on characters and dialogue. And in many cases, when it's just, the characters, it goes a little quicker. Now, there's a lot of panels on this page. The scenes are very similar to each other because we're just basically watching the characters in the same shot talk over and over again. And I tried to move them around and make them different from panel to panel. What I usually do, though, is to save time, I'll copy and paste a lot of the characters and just subtly change them. I've mentioned that in other videos. I mentioned that in my time-saving tip video to reuse as much as you can. But there was enough differences from panel to panel between the way the characters were standing or where they were in the scene or how big they were, where I didn't want to just copy and paste. So I ended up drawing a lot of the characters from scratch. And when I do that, that does take a lot more time. So this page is a little lighter of a page. The story's going to start getting a little heavier as we get towards the climax of the story. And as I probably mentioned, this current storyline has 8 issues in it. We're almost done with issue 6. So we're getting towards issue 7 and 8, which are gonna be a little heavier, a little more story driven, and a little more, with the climax and then finalizing everything to wrap the story up in issue 8. But this page here is a little lighter. The dialogue's meant to be a little lighter. The robots, because all the robots are here, it's really meant for a little bit of comic relief. We're introducing a new character in this scene, D4QP, who's one of the robots that the Spectre found on Idessa. The idea was that the Spectre would bring these robots on board, repair them, and try to glean some information on when they were still trying to track where the Spectre were taken. So one of the robots wasn't as badly damaged. He was repaired a couple issues ago. We've been able to provide a lot of information from him, but he's probably I'll call him the less brighter of the 2 robots. And he's more of a funny character. And D4QP, which is the new robot we're bringing back online, is a little more serious. And he's very similar to Prox. And Prox is a character. Prox is the main robot, Spark's main robot. He's got a superiority complex, and that always brings some fun, interesting dialogue between him and the other characters. So now we have D4QP, who's also has the similar personality, and now we have 2 robots with this superiority complex dealing with all the other characters. That should be a lot of fun to write and draw. But on top of that, D4 has a little bit of condescension because he really thinks he's better than all the other characters. So that should be fun too. So let's talk about the actual scene on this page. So the robots are here. They're repairing the 2 damaged robots. As I said, one of the robots, Fingot, was brought online a couple issues ago. We got some information out of him. And D4QP, and if you're interested in where that name came from, I just took C3PO. I advanced the digits one letter and one number based on the word. So instead of C3PO, we've got D4QP, just trying to pay a little homage to Star Wars as the big fan that I am. Check out my last video, which was an R2-D2 speed draw if you haven't seen it. So as I said before, this page was mostly focused on characters and dialogue. And even though it's a lighter page, kind of a little more comic relief before we get to the heavier aspects of the story and the adventure, this page did a couple of things for advancing the story. Number one, it answered some questions that were raised way back in issue 3 by talking to a new character that was kind of in the situation back then. Stuff we didn't know gets exposed here. But it also acts as a transition between the Spectre leaving the ship, starting their adventure, going through the asteroid field, and then, you know, basically allows some time to pass so that when we rejoin them, they've already traveled most of the distance to their final destination on the final asteroid where the Ori base is. So it just gives us the opportunity to kind of transition between those two scenes. So there's a lot of good story aspects with this page, and I did enjoy drawing it. Again, very light on background, more focused on character, and allowing us to bring a new character online, D4QP, who's going to be kind of fun and interesting through the next 2 issues of the story. So now what's going to happen is we're going to follow 2 sets of characters through their journeys and allow us to flash back and forth between the 2. We still have Arid and Kepler back on the home world, which we will check in with from time to time. But the main story is going to be happening out in space on the Zebulon with the robots and on the Ori vessel, and then ultimately on the final asteroid where the Ori base is with the final confrontation of the story. So there's a lot that's going to be happening in the next couple issues as we head towards the final part of the journey. With only 2 pages left to go in the comic, I'm going to try to run through those 2 quickly. Those 2 pages should go a lot quicker because there's a lot less to draw on them. Some of the scenes take place in space with the ship traveling. Couple of close-up dialogue scenes with the main characters, the Spectre and Arco. I'll probably do a combined video where I run through both of those pages, talk through the final scene. The final 2 pages are going to be the final scene of this issue. But what's going to be important about the final page, and we'll talk about this when we get there, is how I end a comic issue to kind of give you interest in the next issue, the next chapter of the story. I have a formula that I follow for each of my comic issues, each of my chapters, where you start with a little bit of story, introduction to each scene, give a little interest to the issue, add a little action element along with some other story elements, and then you end the issue with some sort of interest that makes you want to read on to the next chapters. Leave a question for the reader to want to ask and get answered in the next issue and kind of entice them to read on. It's kind of the same formula they use for any sitcom you see or any TV show that's serialized or episodic, where they leave a little breadcrumb for you that you really want to see what happens next and it excites you to read it. Granted, working on issue 7 is probably going to take me a year or 2. When the whole storyline is done, it'll be fun to kind of see how people read issue to issue and what entices them to go on to continue reading the story. So that's it for this comic drawing session. Thanks for tuning in and walking through it with me. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and force YouTube to share this video with other comic book fans. Don't forget the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss future videos. And go ahead and leave a comment. If you do leave a comment, I probably will respond. I really enjoy reading what you guys have to say. That's it for this video. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.